Hello and welcome to the Monster Mechanics Podcast, where we take creatures of myth and media and see how they can be improved. I am your host, Scott Paladin, and with me as always is the Cisco to my Picard, Zach Jaquays. What are we talking about today, Zach?
Today we are talking about the Adventurer's Bane, the Rust Monster.
So I'm going to turn explaining the Rust Monster over to you, Zach, because there is no historical basis for these creatures. They are completely made up.
So Rust Monsters are a creature from D&D that to describe them, they are large, maybe about the size of, I guess, maybe a cow. They are shaped sort of like a flea covered in kind of a carapace with a long winding tail and two large feathery antennae on the front of its body.
Okay.
However, where they gain their namesake is that anything they touch with these feathery tentacles on the front of their head corrodes and rusts, which they then consume.
Mm-hmm.
They are typically used by DMs as a way of game balance, where they will destroy the party members' precious magical items and are often a cause for fights at the D&D table.
Yeah, you described it as the creature you throw in when you're like, I haven't had a fight at my table for a while. Yeah. They are a very contentious monster in D&D. There are a few creatures that you can throw into your campaign that will more quickly. Fear isn't the right word. They don't really strike fear into the hearts of your players so much as cause them distress. Maybe is the right way to put it.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that it's because they target a resource the players have that doesn't regenerate, and you're destroying their equipment.
Exactly. Yeah. If you just get hit with your HP, like HP grows back, like HP's free basically. Yeah. Whereas my nice shiny metal chest piece or the magical items that are making me powerful are things that I had to work really hard to get. And if you destroy them, that is going to set me back and make me weaker. And they're going to be really hard to get back.
There's definitely a certain kind of player for whom their measure of success is the treasure they've accrued, the gear that they have and equip themselves with. And if the DM is working directly to take that away from them, that feels like a personal attack.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're definitely not used, if you're used to living in the normal sort of D&D world where as a player character, honestly, you're not very threatened. Like there aren't that many things that are going to threaten you. And especially if your GM or DM is being, not being cruel and is only throwing things at you that you can handle. Yeah. Then you're going to feel very confident, and to come across something that will like feel like an attack, like the very presence of a Rust Monster sort of feels like an attack. Now, that being said, that's an easy fix if you want to incorporate them into your world. Just do it more. Like if they're there more often, if they're a present threat and like a normal part of your game world, then players are sort of going to get used to it. Like they'll build in the presence of these creatures into their like risk assessment of the world, and they'll start to feel natural. And
I think just from a world building standpoint, that's a really interesting thing to just toss into a world. Is because if you have a world where like cities are made of metal and Rust Monsters are just like a pest, like rodents, and suddenly you have to start saying, well, okay, well, now I'm going to build my cities out of stone or wood or other available resources. And metal becomes like something you got to seal away and guard.
Yeah, something that can be threatened. By the same token, there isn't that much metal in nature because of iron oxidizes pretty easily. Like you don't find iron just out in the world. In fact, the only metals that you will find in a relatively pure form are things like copper and gold, basically, where they're like, these things don't oxidize. And so you can actually like find rocks that have some of that in them. Which that begs the question to me is, what does a Rust Monster eat normally? Like if it is normally, like if it normally sustains itself off of steel, off of iron, that it's not going to find any of that in nature, really. So what is it like? Where does it come from, or what does it normally eat that it is now thinking of this as a viable food source? So those are some big questions for that. I do like the idea that maybe they come from a place where iron is frequent, like it's super common. Maybe it's another plane of existence or another universe or something like that they've sort of leaked into the more traditional fantasy worlds.
I also like the idea that maybe it was an engineered creature that just kind of got out of control. Like there's some, mayor or something who's like, we got this huge scrapyard that's just up here. And we got this wizard here who says he's got an idea that will take care of it. And then he introduces this tiny little, rust monster, and it breeds.
I have a wild pitch for you.
Go for it.
I'm picturing a world, a fantasy world, like imagine, Forgotten Realms or something like that, or Tolkien's Middle Earth, and a continent-sized iron robot has crashed into it.
Okay.
That like the cataclysm that formed this world is that from some, like, it's like not part of the story of the world. This is a black swan event. This is a thing that like nobody could have predicted. Like a sci-fi story was happening in the background and a giant mecha was destroyed and it crashed into this world. And then the world is formed out of the aftermath of that event where like there's now continents, right? Like there's like, it's the chest of this thing is the main like land that you'd have your adventurers roaming over the top of.
Okay.
And like an arm stretched to one side is an archipelago, as like bits of it stick up above the water and stuff.
Well, I'm already in love with this world, so keep going.
And I'm thinking the Underdark is the inside of the machine, right? Like and so Rust Monsters in this world might be a pest that is it's an alien. It's like from the sci-fi realm. These are something that was either created by, bioengineering or something like that, or it's an alien that was found in another world. And it's like a problem for these giant robots that are off fighting their war. And some of them have just happened to be carried into this fantasy realm on the back of this giant robot.
I mean, these could even just be something that just evolves naturally. If there's like this much iron available readily all the time, then
exactly,
like that's an ecological niche that's got to be filled.
And rusting is an exothermic process. It's very slow, and it's not normally particularly energy efficient to try to like power something off of something rusting. But you could actually kind of come up with an explanation for a creature turning metal into its oxide and getting energy out of that process. It's a little bit like burning or a little bit like digesting. So you can totally just sort of, you might have to hand wave it a little bit because the math doesn't really work out, but you could totally say, these creatures are living off of the process of turning this stuff into rust.
Well, if this is sci-fi metal of some kind, like we could say that like the process of it rusting would be something that it produces an enormous amount of energy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, these things, maybe they're evolved to eat the far more efficient metals, the ones that they get so much more energy out of eating, like the bones of this creature. But like when they get up to the surface and there isn't a lot of that around, they're almost starving. Like they're just because they're up on the surface where there isn't a lot of available metal, as opposed to down deep into the chest cavity where they can just be eating the walls. And so like when they see an adventurer with their little sword and their chainmail and stuff, it's like it's a hungry man suddenly seeing a feast in front of them, and they're going to be very very insistent. They're going to go straight for that meal opportunity then.
Okay, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting way to take the Rust Monster.
Yeah. Let's see, what else can we do with them? Like, so I like this world. Let's just play around in this space a little bit.
I feel like this is a great stepping off point.
What else could come along with that world? Like maybe did magic already exist in this world? And that when the robot hit it, or is that something that maybe like it brought with it? Like,
well, I kind of love the idea of like the whole thing of like sufficiently advanced technology.
Yeah. And so maybe there's like, nanotech or, phase emitters or something like that like people are scavenging up this technology from inside of this giant robot and turning it into magic. But it's just like we think it's a magic wand of cure light wounds, but actually it's a nano healing device that is able to reconstruct broken limbs and things like that.
It's a microsurgery kit just in the form of a stick.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, this is a world like living on the open chest of a giant robot. That's the best version of the Underdark I've heard so far. Is like it's literally insides of a great machine.
Yeah, which like it's automatically built up. Like you can make it a dungeon however you want. Like if this was maybe a giant robot that was already designed to house civilizations, you could have aspects and remnants of their cultures.
Yeah, for sure.
They obviously all perished in the crash, or maybe they didn't.
Yeah. And like there could be, it explains why there is so much just open area underneath the ground, like which doesn't really happen all that often. But this is a thing that was meant to be worked on and had people inside of it and everything like that. That's very cool.
And by that extent, it also forms just like natural habitats for anything that wants to live there.
That is cool. What else can we do with this? So then we'd spoken a little bit about the idea of disenchanters, which are another D&D creature, which are basically rust monsters, but they specifically target magic items instead of just
they drain enchantments.
Yeah, they live off magic.
And so now your Vorpal sword is the same as any other sword.
Right. So maybe this is that same idea. It's a creature that got carried down with the robot, and it feeds off of specifically the kinds of energies that come from this world or comes from the robot's technology. Like it can't live off of light and it can't eat food. It needs to get specifically like nanobots or something like that it feeds on.
What if these disenchanters or whatever were like a tool that this previous society used to keep nanotechnology in check, like kind of prevent gray goo scenarios?
Yeah, they're the thing that you break glass in case of gray goo. They're their own they're a control device. Yeah, that's just been released because it was in some black box somewhere inside of this great creature or inside of this great robot. And when it crashed, it broke open and these things came out.
So from an adventure standpoint, like this thing, like, oh, it's bad. It kills all the magical power granting thing, but whereas this is actually a safety feature.
I like that. And in this world, then, like gray goo might be a real problem too, because there was nanotechnology inside various parts of this robot. When it got out, some of it is like, so maybe there's a continent somewhere or somewhere maybe deep under the ocean. Like this is just a visual that I like, where if you go deep enough down, you find like resting at the deepest parts of trenches, just this sea of gray goo of nanobots that are like collected there.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That's a really cool dynamic.
Kind of softly glowing and like with a silvery light.
And it kind of adds like that horror in the deep kind of thing where like you don't go there.
Yeah. I love the idea of combining that sort of nanotechnology fear with like the elder god fear, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and it could look like have you ever seen water from below when like moonlight's streaming through it? You know, it's got that kind of shimmery quality and like, but it could look like that, but flipped upside down and at the bottom of a trench, you know, like,
oh yeah.
It's like kind of like you can't quite see the light source, but you can see the light that's being reflected through the surface. That would be very cool.
I also like the idea that the idea of like gray goo is basically just like a nanoparticle that just keeps making more of itself just exponentially and consuming all nearby material to do so.
Yeah.
But I also kind of like the idea of like it's still trying to fulfill its original purpose of like doing whatever it was doing. Like,
yeah.
So like people who go down there interact with it, become changed.
Ooh, okay. Let me throw an idea in that direction, which is the most prevalent form of gray goo that is released is the auto repair system of this giant robot. Like coursing through the bones and underneath the skin of this robot were nanomachines that were specifically there to repair damage that this thing would sustain during combat. So just by volume, that was what most of the nanotechnology was doing. So when this thing crashed in, most of that leaked out, and that's how it got into these under parts of the ocean, right? And so that is like, if that goo has a drive, that is what that drive is to do, is like to get this thing back up and running.
Okay.
But it doesn't have everything it needs, and this thing's too badly damaged, but it does have an entire planet to work with.
Yeah.
So maybe deep underneath this planet, it is slowly being converted into another giant robot.
Okay, I love that.
In an uncontrolled, cancerous kind of way. Like the plan isn't like the body layout isn't properly there anymore.
Yeah, like all the controller nanites have long since died off and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's just like these undulating chain of arm or whatever.
Yeah. Building more row after row of ribs and like, power plants and things that are half formed or jammed together with control systems, and nothing works properly anymore. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so then if people encounter it, maybe they get turned into like the little worker bee kind of robots that would have been part of this bigger system, right? Like they get turned into like things happen to them and they get turned into cybernetic creations or something like that, where like, you stick your hand into this gray goo inadvertently and then pull it back, and like suddenly your arm is being turned into like a robot arm.
I also like the idea that maybe there's like language or something in the design of these things that has them assess like the materials at hand and determine the best use for like, so they might rewrite the person to further the ends of rebuilding this robot.
Oh yeah.
So you get kind of like this robot cult stemming out of people who've encountered the gray goo.
A nanobot induced like madness, or obsession. Like they get into your brain and they start like telling you to do things.
Mm-hmm. So now you're like, I have to bring this specific material to the ocean.
Dude,
or I need to bring more people.
Nanobot cordyceps.
Yes.
Where they're literally, there are little like things inside of you that like start to build structures and stuff, and at the same time are also like dictating what your behavior should be and what you should do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's hot. It's scary, but it's hot. This is cool. So wait, okay. In this world, now that we've gone further down this path, let's circle back around to Rust Monsters a little bit.
Okay.
Are they part of this nanobot thing, or were they just a pest that was carried along, do you think?
Personally, I like the idea that they're just a pest.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an interesting niche for them, and they're actually like helping control and curb.
Yeah. In a way that they weren't intended to, like they're not.
Yeah.
They just happened to be there, but like they are a fighting force against this, like what's happening to this planet is that there are probably, honestly, if they're eating like the bones of this mech, then there's probably a billion of them down there.
Oh yeah.
They're an uncontrolled population. And the only reason why you see them somewhat commonly on the surface is just because there are untold numbers of them down in the caverns, like just eating away. And that occasionally one of them finds its way to the surface. And even though that's kind of rare for each individual of them, just the total number means you see them kind of commonly now.
Sure. Yeah. So like, but when you go down beneath, into the depths below, like it's just seas of them just swarming clean to every surface.
But that's where you want to go if you need to get the good magic stuff. Like that's where all of the cool things are. So there's actually like a good reason for adventurers to be dungeon diving. Like there's now a story logic behind it. Is it like, this isn't like an evil lair or an evil wizard's lair where he happens to have been leaving around +1 swords and stuff. It's that this is like an unexplored part of this giant thing that is like running through the planet right now. And it's not only like the ruined decays of the robot itself, but now also the reforming of caverns and like the rebuilding of parts of that robot in different ways as the repair bots go completely haywire. So it changes all of the time. So you might go down into a dungeon, quote unquote, which is like a surface tunnel or something like that. And then you might have it all mapped out and then leave and come back, and the nanobots have come through and tried to fix things. Now it's all different. And like the doors they've shifted around.
I really love that idea. Like one of the things I always kind of liked about Forgotten Realms was the idea of Undermountain, which is sort of like this ever-changing dungeon. Just like, that's just a feature underneath the city of, I think it was Waterdeep. Yeah. But like, it's different every time you go down there. And I always kind of love that idea. And I love that this is sort of just a natural way for that to occur.
Yeah. Well, it's unnatural, but it is like a systematic. It's a
exactly
systematic explanation for it, which is really cool. And that also leaves you open the idea of like bringing that outside conflict into this world at some point in the future. You could say like maybe the original owners of that robot like show back up and are trying to reclaim it, or maybe they feel responsible for what's happening to this world and they're trying to clean it up. But to the adventurers who are like taking advantage of what has happened here and for whom this has been, this is the way life has been for 1,000 years. To them, it looks like, oh, these aliens are trying to destroy all of this good stuff that we've been trying to get. Like they look like an enemy now just because they're trying to clean up and fix what they broke.
I also like the idea of like, there's got to be like all kinds of like these nano machine processes and whatnot. And like some of them are like hidden away, and like when they interact with like the reconstructive process, you get different things occurring. Like some of them will become sort of a sentient entity with a purpose deep within the core of this beast.
Well, and like this same idea could explain a bunch of different D&D style creatures, like trolls with their unkempt regeneration stuff is just a creature that has had these self-repairing nanobots get into their system and go haywire. Yeah. And like now they can't be killed because every one of their cells is completely infused with nanobots that puts them back together again immediately, unless you do something to disrupt that system like fire or acid that can attack the nanobots themselves.
That's a really cool idea.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, and then take that same idea to a different tact, and like reanimating corpses happens the same sort of way. You infuse it with nanobots that aren't really there to like repair the creature, but they just put motion back into it.
Yeah, so they pick up the skeleton or whatever and just like, oh, hey, this is a handy fulcrum to use. And so now I'm just going to use this tool to further my ends.
Or like maybe they're even like you quote unquote reanimate a corpse, but what is actually happening is that they're going in there and like building servos and pistons and stuff to like basically they're taking the corpse and making it into a robot that's just like moving the joints around and stuff.
That's really cool. And I love the idea of like necromancers are just a bunch of guys who found this one very specific tech and are working with it.
And that makes all magicians, all wizards and necromancers and witches and stuff like that, they're basically hackers. Like they're people who are reverse engineering this technology that they do not understand.
Yeah.
But they have like figured out what levers to flip and what bits to hack around with and get it to do something that, you know, like is useful for them and they think is great, but is like not intended use for the technology at all.
You're just sitting there hex editing this.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so what else can we explain about the like regular D&D world with this idea of it having been like smashed together with the sci-fi far future version?
Well, deities probably look very different in this world.
Yeah.
If like you're living in the corpse of a giant robot, then
yeah, could they be explained by like, oh, that could be kind of cool. So this thing crashes, and part of what's in there is also like records and information about the Great War that's going on, and these things are somewhat accessible. Maybe like they're like, you know, you go down to the caverns and you find a neat box, and when you bring it back, you press a button and a hologram of a person shows up, and they're speaking, but you can't understand what they're saying. So you think it's a god, and you start worshiping them, and you put them on a temple and stuff like that. It turns out that was just like a voicemail message that was left for the pilot, and it's like his dry cleaner or like his ex-girlfriend or something.
It's just the repair technician just kind of detailing the list of repairs this guy's going to need.
But they have like assigned qualities to it based on like arbitrary things about the way the image looked.
Okay, so I love the idea if like their pantheon was the crew of this thing.
Yes.
So they have like, and like they're getting all this, like all these video feeds that like occasionally pop up, and they don't have like any order or specific, you know, arrangement for it, but they're like seeing these gods interact and like whatever, like, oh, this god had a tryst with this god, and therefore, you know. Okay.
Two things. One, this is a Voltron, I've decided.
Okay, perfect.
The robot is definitely not it wasn't like a single one. It's a Voltron where they're like made up of smaller robots.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different control points in different parts of the world. Because like one guy was in the head, and one guy was in the chest, and one guy was the arm, and one guy was the other arm. And so they were a team. This was a Power Rangers situation.
Okay.
Because let's just lean heavy into the genre thing.
Absolutely. I'm for it.
That means that they're color coded even. So that now the great religions of the world have each taken one of those members of the crew and have like built their identities around them. So you've got this one group, which is all built after like the guy who always wore red and was the kind of the loner dude, was themed in a certain way. And so like they've all taken that and built their identity around it. And then there's the other group that is like built themselves after the little tech kid who like always wore yellow and had a certain kind of like, that's where all of the like iconography of this world comes up.
Yeah, I love it. Like if like they don't have any like, because we're going with Voltron, like whatever. Every body part was like also an animal or something.
But they have no idea what that animal was.
Exactly. So all their iconography is built off this alien animal that they've never seen before.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
I also love the idea of like one of the limbs or whatever that was like crashed and fell into like the deep trenches and is kind of like that's the one that's destroyed or whatever. Like that's sort of their evil pantheon god, maybe.
Yeah. This is so weird. Okay, what else can we do? Could this explain all of the different monster, like all the races and stuff, like elves and dwarves and stuff? Is there a way for like were people warped by nanotechnology that came out of this thing, or is this an evolutionary response to like people introducing different like the dwarves maybe are guys who like all like this is a bunch of people who delved really deep into the chest cavity and have now been living down there for generations, and so therefore have like changed a bit. Like I mean not long enough to evolve, but like that's where this like idea of dwarves comes from, is these people living deep in the chest. Maybe they were even changed. Like I don't know.
Maybe there was like a city that was built like on top of the chest cavity at one point, and something happened deep within it that like caused the mech to reconfigure and just absorb that city.
Oh yeah. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That has to have happened. And now these people have been down there, and like, maybe this is far flung future technology. So like, maybe like gene editing was a thing that was available out in the universe, out in space. And it's only there for like a limited use. Like, you can't just like, you don't have a machine that you can go up to back and, over and over again and be like, I want to be taller now. I want to be shorter now. I want to have a tail. But like, limited time uses, you could go in and like inject yourself in order to like rapidly evolve or something like that, where like the system that gets put into your puts you in a state of like rapidly changing in order to meet the needs that you have come up against. Like it's meant for like an emergency situation where like, if you had crashed on an alien planet that didn't have a breathable atmosphere, you can inject yourself with this stuff and you will become a creature able to live in that new environment very rapidly.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah.
And then so some people got a hold of this stuff and just used it because of course they did. And so like in the sunken cities, they become the quote unquote dwarves, who are stockier and able to fit in tight spaces and have low light vision and able to like have really good spatial awareness to be able to maneuver around and stuff. And somebody else got it when they were, I don't know what niche the elves would be, but like something along those lines, where like they got it when they were up on the surface. So they got lighter and a little bit smaller, but they got like really good vision and stuff like that. That could be cool.
Yeah.
I would also explain some of the more like bizarre bizarre species too. Like maybe one guy got it and it was a little bit broken and it turned it into an illithid,
Yeah, that's cool.
Although actually I think in illithids in this version, I think they're an evil race. Like they're what the robot was fighting.
Okay. Yeah.
And like a prisoner or something like that, which was just like a little illithid slug, got let out, and now they're a big problem on the planet.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah. So when I upload these to YouTube, I always put an emoji at the end of all the titles, and my favorite part is always picking the emoji. Okay. And when we were talking, I was thinking in the shower, I'm like, what am I going to do for Rust Monsters? And now it's going to be robot.
Perfect.
Inexplicably, because this episode is going to be barely about Rust Monsters.
These are always my favorite episodes.
No, I am we take so into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about Rust Monsters for 6 minutes. Talk about just create a world full of like.
Oh yeah, the world building is always the best part.
Oh, 100%. It's just funny. I don't have a problem.
Dragons. How did they fit into this?
Ooh, good point.
So we got our dungeons.
Yes, we need dragons. You were right. Yeah, we have to have the other D. I want to have robot dragons. Can we have robot dragons?
Why not?
Yeah, like I think that this world needs, like, I hate to say that they're nanotechnology because everything's been nanotechnology so far. So maybe there's some other version of it that. Oh, okay. Dragons are what the theme of the original Voltron team was.
Okay.
Okay. Dragons are a real creature from whatever planet those guys are from.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a real creature. They live where the actual dragons were. And all of their, this is a Voltron made up of dragons. And then they had vehicles or robots inside them, like a weapon system or something like that were dragons. Like that's maybe they're missiles, like they would fire small dragons or something like that. And then when this thing crashed, all of those like stored munitions, which are all dragon themed, got out and are since been raging. Like they're uncontrolled missiles and guns and stuff.
Okay. If this original Voltron wasn't called Tiamat, I quit.
No, 100%. It's done. It has been so decided.
We got the 5 colored dragons.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Yes. And like, there's at least one D&D world where Tiamat is at the center of the world. And then we've just like,
absolutely. Yeah.
We've just done that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, when this thing was flying around fighting illithids in space, like they would be like, Ultra Dragon Force attack go or something like that. And they would like open their chest up and like hundreds of like little robot dragons would fly out and crash into the thing. And like they would cause damage. And that was the thing. And so when this thing crashed into the planet and broke itself open, slow, like a whole bunch of them initially, and then still some over time have been like of these missiles and weapons and things have been getting out, and they go on rampages because they're specifically designed as weapons.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they fly around with like repulsor, like fire shooting out from underneath them, and they attack settlements and stuff because they were specifically built as like you are a damage dealer, like you are supposed to cause as much.
It's like an anti-infantry kind of weapon.
Yeah. Which makes them a huge threat. But then also, if you rip them open, they're full of all of the good technology.
Oh yeah,
that you want. So if you slay a dragon, you are going to unleash a whole bunch of new, magic items and really useful metals and things. Like in this world, like a +1 sword isn't like a magical sword that has like essence going through it or anything like that. It's just like you picked up you're in a world full of iron and you picked up a piece of titanium that's already sharp, and like or some fancy space metal even beyond that, that's freaking sweet.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Robot dragons. Yeah. Well, and that also explains why there's all these different chromatic colored dragons.
Yeah.
Is because they're the themed weapons from the various, this makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
and like why, okay. And so then, and then you've got like maybe somebody reprogrammed some of them, and you've got like the metallic dragons, the ones.
Or they're just like the unpainted ones. Like that.
Yeah. They're the unpainted ones who weren't programmed with their destruction with all of their the weapon programming hadn't been loaded on.
Perfect.
So they were neutral when they were turned on and are now therefore kind of good guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's perfect. I love this. Makes
in 34 minutes, we have made a more cohesive world than any D&D world I've ever seen.
God,
all this stupid bullshit comes back to it just have been smashed by a Voltron.
I kind of want to run a campaign here. This is amazing.
Oh man!
And I had no idea how we were going to fill an hour on Rust Monsters, but
the answer is that we didn't. We did 4 minutes of Rust Monsters, and then 20 or 30 or 40 minutes or whatever of whatever the hell this is.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to write a description for this episode because it'll be like, just listen and find out. Man, okay, so there will be if the world is being turned into a giant robot by the nano machines, there's got to be some point in the campaign where the adventuring party, I guess, finds themselves in one of these control rooms and like starts pushing buttons, and like archipelagos start lifting out of the sea and things.
Yeah, I love
that. Would be cool. Or like maybe they find one of these pilots in a pod somewhere, and they like open it up, and now they have to deal with somebody who's like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, he's been like,
but to them it's a god.
Yeah, he's one of the gods, but he was like frozen in cryo sleep or whatever.
Obviously, that was the blue pilot.
Yeah, this is amazing. So what other D&D tropes haven't we touched on that?
Yeah, we've been talking about magic. Magic. Well, we've talked about magic items. We didn't really talk about magic. Like
that's true.
Casting a spell. I wonder how we could work that in. Because it's normally described as like, like memorizing formulas or something like that gives you access to some abilities somewhere. Is there could there be like a central computer that like, if you're able to hack its code, you're able to like affect the world around you?
Potentially, or maybe there's like bits of like nanoparticles that like infect people and sort of like grant them the like basically an override code to command nanoparticles like in the vicinity. Like,
oh, okay. So like we've got like the gray goo that's deep in the ocean that's like trying to transform the world, but that wasn't the only nanoparticles that were there. There's a bunch of like general purpose ones, I guess, ones that hadn't been given instructions with what to do. And those have infested everything in the world. Like there are nano machines in every creature, every rock, everything like that. And depending on I think maybe the magic of this world doesn't map 1-to-1 into a D&D magic.
Sure.
But some of it does. Like you say, I'm going to make flaming hands. You're like, okay, what you've done is actually hacked your own nanoparticles. Like you figured something out and you managed to communicate, you slip some code into some of them and they like leave your body and then aerosolize and create fire. You know, like you create a flamethrower out of your hand. And so like, or charm person, for example, is to like do the same thing, but with somebody else's nanoparticles.
Interesting.
And so some of the like, I don't know, like levitation spells maybe don't work under this or something like that. But like, so there's some of these things that you couldn't explain this way, but that all magic works that same way. You're literally hacking your way into the nanoparticles that have infused this world and are getting to do things.
I like that.
Although that does imply that maybe the bards do it just by singing. Which actually, I don't know. I was joking about it just now, but then my brain's like, well, what if it wasn't a joke? And it really is about like the rhythmic, like that's the way they're hacking it, is using like rhythms and frequencies. And they don't really understand why what they're doing is working, but like that is the same effect that it is having. It is like wreaking havoc onto these small machines that infuse the world.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah. Okay, that actually kind of works.
I also kind of love the idea if like all their songs and magic is based around like the theme song for this original.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I love it. And like, by the same token, divine magic. When you're like praying to a god, you are using like phrases and commands in a language you do not understand as your prayer, which are actual commands that had been issued by the pilots. The god that you worship, who is just a dude, you issue a command like essentially with his access code, and that causes like the same sort of, instead of like hacking into the system, you are just using like the access rights that you have been given because you're using the like you're using the original pilot's license basically in order to get these nanoparticles to do the same sort of thing.
This is incredible. And
the commands available to the divine magician, the priests and the paladins and stuff, those are different than the ones from the wizards, because the wizards are hacking the system and they don't have access to any of the same commands, whereas the priests and paladins and stuff, clerics, are like actually invoking real commands that were supposed to exist into the system before.
And of course, because religion, like all these commands are very closely guarded by the different priests and whatnot.
Yeah. It's all like, you know, a secret that you have to hold close, otherwise it'll get out, because what they really don't want anyone to know is that anybody can do it.
Yeah. And so like leveling up is like gaining access to more potent and more useful.
Yeah. It's all, they're all secrecy cults where like the more closely into the ring you get, the more access codes they give you and more the more privileges you're granted.
And there's heretics that like accidentally discover some of these things and they have to be hunted down.
This is too good. I want us to stop while the iron is still hot. We got a little bit left on the table. This is too good. I want to run the steam out on it.
This has definitely become one of my favorite episodes. So.
This is right up there with the Trolls one.
Oh yeah.
All right then. Well, we will leave you guys, and we're done. Bye.
Till next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Monster Mechanics. Do you want to help others find our podcast? Why don't you head over to Podchaser or perhaps iTunes and give us a rating and review? We pay close attention to those things and would love to hear your feedback. Now to the credits. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. All of the ideas generated during this podcast are released under a do what the f*** you want public license.